So I'm Alan Gelb, and good to see you all tonight. I'm a founding member of Indivisible Columbia, New York, which actually started as Indivisible Chatham, New York, back in 2017. And since then, we have organized canvassing for each election, and we've had quite a bit of success, I'm happy to say. We helped yield electoral victories for Antonio Delgado twice. We helped elect a Democratic sheriff and a Democratic district attorney. And we have been sort of central in establishing Columbia County as one of the most canvassed counties in the state, if not the nation. And that's quite a feat because canvassing in Columbia County is a little more challenging than it is in a city or whatever. Okay. We're organizing again to pack the house and getting people out in support of our terrific candidate, Josh Riley. Uh, our secret weapon in all of these elections has been an office out of which we can effectively organize canvassing. This year, in partnership with the Chatham Democrats, we have secured a terrific office at 2 Park Row, which we will have through November. And we're hoping to see a lot of people going in and out of there. And now we have, I think we're all feeling some significant wind beneath our wings with the latest report was 170,000 people have volunteered to help the Harris campaign across the nation. And we hope that some of you will join that number. I know some of you have already been out canvassing in the past, and hope you will jump in with your insights and so forth as we go on this evening. But we're here to answer your questions and to kind of share some knowledge about how canvassing works. So I want to start by introducing our panel of experts. And I'd like these folks to raise their hands as I introduce you. Miriam Raban. Okay. Miriam's a resident of Spencertown. She's a member of our steering committee, and she serves as the lead for the New York 19 voter registration groups, which is one of the action groups in the NY19 Votes Coalition, whose goal is to turn the 19th congressional district back to Democrat. Miriam and I also established the Columbia Voting Alliance, which seeks to identify and implement good approaches to voter registration in the county. So Miriam has much more than I, has organized voter registration at farmers markets and pride parades and things like that. Chatham resident Rick Werweis, who is got a bad cold and may not be that visible right now, but he is a seasoned nonprofit executive who ran campaign offices for the public interest research groups for 3.5 years across the country, which included training and sending out hundreds of canvassers. And he has canvassed for progressive candidates in our region in each of the last dozen or so elections. He's also led 3 successful funding referendums for the local library and a community preservation fund. Judy Catton. There she is. Judy is a resident of Old Chatham. She's a retired attorney who has had long experience in progressive politics and government. She first canvassed voters for the McGovern for President campaign in 1972, which unfortunately was not successful, as we remember. And she has been
It was just a few years ago. I mean,
she's been ringing doorbells ever since for multiple campaigns in California, Florida, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York City, and Columbia County. Chatham resident Joanne Del Rossi. Up in the, raise your hand. Okay. She is the chairperson of the Town of Chatham Democratic Committee. She's a member of the Columbia County Democratic Committee and a member of the state, national, and town chair committees. She is also a member of Third Act, upstate New York, whose mission is to protect democracy and advance the rapid transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy resources. And then we have Alex Kramer, who is in the middle row there. Alex is an actor and a writer. He's recently transplanted to Spencertown, and he is the founder of Knock for Democracy, an activist organization that works nationally and that has fostered a community of dedicated volunteers who have knocked on thousands of doors and made millions of calls to voters across the country. All right, so Alex is going to have a few remarks for us on why canvassing matters. Please, Alex, tell us.
Absolutely. Canvassing matters for a lot of reasons. I think first off, it is the single most effective tool we have as individuals to shape the outcomes of elections. It is these conversations that you can have on someone's doorstep, face to face, in person, can be absolutely transformational in terms of folks' vote preference, willingness to vote. You run down the line. As we all know, from our day-to-day lives, being in front of another person has a much greater impact than does shooting them a text or anything else, any other mode of communication. And the same holds true for this work. I think all of the panelists would agree that they've had some truly transformational experiences going door to door and talking to people. I think the other piece to mention is that this work is so personally fulfilling and meaningful, and frankly can be fun. Miriam and I were on a call last night. We're having a argument whether canvassing or going on a hike is actually a more enjoyable experience. I was saying canvassing, maybe tops the list for me personally. I think the experience of going to door, meeting members of your community, other communities, and understanding the spectrum of opinions beyond what just exists online or in our email inboxes, really understanding on a granular level what matters to voters, and what feels like the salient issues of the day for people is a way not only to, slowly work people towards supporting our candidates, but really shaping our understanding of what makes politics, and what makes community. So I believe I've been, running canvassing trips now for going on 8 years, in the New York area and in Pennsylvania. And I've had some really truly transformative experiences, and I've watched hundreds of other people have the same. And I am so glad that Alan and others are organizing this Zoom, because for any of you who haven't done this work, I imagine you've probably postcarded or sent letters or anything like that. There is so much value to taking this extra step, and driving a little bit to show up at someone's door and showing them that you care, because a letter in a mailbox definitely means something, but someone driving up your driveway and showing up at your door and saying that they want to hear about the issues that matter to you as a voter, that makes an enormous difference. And together, if we're doing it en masse, can really swing elections. So I'm a believer, and I'm grateful that this space is being held so that all of you can come on board as well.
That's great, Al.
Back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much. Folks, I forgot to mention that I'm inviting you to put questions in the chat box, and then when we get to the Q&A part of this, we'll take them as they came in, okay? We want to spend a few minutes just talking about the qualities of an effective canvasser. What kind of qualities you want to sort of project to do this job well. And I just want to start, and then I'll open up to the panelists here to jump in with their thoughts. But I want to start with something I got from Adelia Moore, who some of you, I'm sure, know, and she couldn't be here tonight, but she sent me something that I thought was rather inspiring. So let me read it. She says, "The most important thing is to be curious. Who are the voters in my town or on this turf? It can be really fun to knock on doors of houses you've passed by a million times, or to explore a new road you've never seen. Then later, if you pass the house again, you have a person and a conversation to remember. Because after all, that is what canvassing is, having conversations with people." Okay, so now let's talk about what characterizes these kinds of conversations. Any of our panelists want to jump in with some insights?
I'm sorry, Alan, I was reading Cindy's question. What was the question? Could you repeat it?
Let's share some of our insights about what we think it takes to be a good canvasser. I'll start. I think you have to be a listener, okay? We're not there to tell people what they should do, or, we're not there. We're there to connect with people, and that's very difficult to do if you're not a good listener. And I guess that next step would be to talk about what makes a good listener.
So I think being respectful is part of that. When I go canvassing, I wrap my mind around it a bit, and I tell myself, Miriam, you're going to be uniformly polite and respectful through the time you're canvassing. You're not going to respond to any provocation. You're certainly not going to argue. And you're going to leave people, as Adelia said, with the sense this was a positive interaction. And especially in this time of very charged political differences, having those conversations, I think, is really important, really, for the nation. I also want to, despite our little back and forth about what's more fun, canvassing or hiking, I agree with Adelia. It's really interesting to me to see parts of Columbia County that I may have passed by. Saturday, I did canvassing out of Hudson, where I saw Victoria, and I've been up and down Fairview Avenue a million times, and I've never been on this street. It was super interesting. I had really engaging conversations with people. I met a union guy who was ready to volunteer, and I just felt totally invigorated after those interactions. So I agree with Alex that it can be engaging and fun. And also, I would just add, people may say, oh, but you don't talk to that many people. I think we're part of the community of committed people who together can make a huge impact in an election year with very high stakes. And we know the margin of victory in our elections has been really small. So when you reach a couple people and sway them, you together with other people are making a huge difference.
I want to just jump on that aspect of respect because I think that's so important here. And I'm thinking of a time that my wife Karen is sitting next to me, and I went up to Berlin and we canvassed at the who was really incredibly poor. Half of the house was basically a tarp. And
No running water.
she was had been a cafeteria worker, and we talked to her for a while. She had a lot of health problems, and she was so appreciative that we came to her house, and she really wanted to vote, and she did vote. And it was kind of a remarkable experience for her, and it was certainly a remarkable experience for us.
Well, I would add that she couldn't get out to vote, but she asked if she could get an absentee ballot. And we, the next day, got her an absentee ballot, and she was so grateful. It was really moving and memorable, so.
And sometimes, you know, those little pieces of information, providing an absentee ballot, little bits of information might be all the interaction takes, and it goes from someone not voting to someone suddenly being able to vote, who might not have picked up the phone or might not have received a postcard, but because you showed up at their door and made that extra effort, you enabled their access to the democratic process. I have a anecdote that I think some of you on the Zoom will appreciate. Back in 2018, I was canvassing in a trailer park in Sullivan County. And I went to the door of a woman who was struggling with a number of different issues. I met her, you know, with respect and empathy, which I think goes hand in hand with respect, you know, really holding
Joined
space
the meeting.
Christine Dreyfus joined the meeting. And I was chatting with her for a little bit and talking to her about Antonio Delgado. And she said, "Are you Antonio Delgado?" And I imagine, as all of you know, that would be shocking to imagine. But here's a woman who, you know, really had so little information about this election that she thought that I was Antonio Delgado. But I was able to spend, you know, 20 minutes with her talking about the issues. I got her signed up to go. There was a town hall about 10 minutes down the road that Delgado was doing about 3 days later. And she went from not knowing all about the candidate to suddenly going and hearing him speak at a town hall 3 days later. And that is like the level of transformation that can happen with these kinds of conversations too, especially when respect and empathy are core.
I've just been reading this interesting book called Hit 'em Where It Hurts by Rachel Bittkoffer. It's all about how to turn Republican negative messaging back on them, okay? And she has some rather shocking statistics in there, like 80% of Americans don't follow politics at all. And so when you go canvassing, you do have to suspend judgment because most people are not like us. Most people don't go to Zoom meetings on how to canvass. So we have to find the human connection. And sometimes that's talking about somebody's dog or somebody's garden or whatever. That's the way in, you know, that's important to remember. Any other thoughts from anybody on this issue of what makes an effective canvasser? Not,
You have to, yes, Helen, I think you have to be able to ask questions gently. You know, and that's paired up with what you said about listening.
Mhm.
And those two go hand in hand. So, and I also want to just agree that you're gonna find people out there who are just not interested in talking to you because they're not interested in politics. And when it becomes apparent to me that that's the case, I leave by saying, I just hope you'll consider voting this fall.
good to know.
And also, I would just also add that you have to be prepared when you're canvassing for the fact that the first 9 houses you may go to, nobody may be home. And that can happen. And then you go to house number 10 and you have a conversation with someone. And when you leave, they say, thank you so much for doing this work. And that really feels good, you know? So that's part and parcel of canvassing.
So now we're edging into how this actually works and what are the myths and so forth that we can dispel here tonight. So there's something called the minivan, and I would like Joanne to say a few remarks about that.
Thanks, Alan. I prepared some remarks about this, particularly targeted at people who have never canvassed before. So I see a lot of really experienced faces on this call. So if you could just bear with me for a minute, I'd really appreciate it. The Voter Activation Network, or VAN, is a national online voter database administered by the Democratic National Committee. The Minivan is a mobile canvassing app that allows for campaigns to contact voters, collect data, and sync the information back to the VAN database in real time. With Minivan's instant data sync, campaign staff can quickly see canvass results, not to mention all of the time previously devoted to entering data from paper packets can now be directed toward phone banking, canvassing, or other campaign work. So when you arrive at headquarters for a canvass, if you don't have the Minivan app already downloaded, a trainer will assist you in downloading it to your cell phone and in setting up an account. The trainer will also go over the script and provide a list of houses to be canvassed. New users can be paired with an experienced canvasser to learn the app and how to approach potential voters, if this option is available on a given day. You will quickly get accustomed to using the VAN and will find it to be a very valuable tool. I just want to let everybody know that you will not be alone. You will be supported. You will be trained. And you will have a wonderful time, like Miriam and Alex have mentioned. It's going to be just a great experience, and it's the right thing to help the campaigns.
Can I also add that the van has maps? It will set up a route for you that is logical and sequential. And I mean, it really lays it out. And what you are asked to report back and will become part of the database are various responses or interests shown by those people with whom you are speaking, most emphatically those who, if they vote, will vote for Josh Riley in this case, or hopefully Kamala Harris as well, which is to say that you're narrowing the universe for subsequent reach out to voters who will, once they vote our way. So it's very important, not only as a persuasive tool, but also as a data gathering tool. And it's fun.
It's fun. And the New York State committees provided all maps with each of the turfs, an actual printed map. So that's really a nice thing, because you're not going to have to look at your telephone to see the map. You'll have a printed map on a piece of paper, but the rest of the information will all be on your phone.
And again, anybody who's planning to canvass will go into the office, and training is available on the spot. Training can be done in a matter of 10 minutes, something like that. Is that
Sure.
Okay, yeah, so it's not a big commitment of time. Also, you mentioned you're not doing this alone, and you're not doing it alone either when you go out on the road, okay?
Right.
We strongly encourage people to do this in pairs. There are people who do it on their own and they're happy with it and they feel good about it, but we think it's a good idea to do it in pairs. So and if you don't have somebody to come in with, there's usually the option of being paired with somebody who will go out with you, and that's great. I became rather friendly with this person I met through canvassing, and that can certainly happen. That's very nice.
You know,
So
just in terms of
go ahead.
great things that happen when you canvass, a woman who's currently my very good friend, I met canvassing for Antonio Delgado. And one of the things I admired about her is she was a great canvasser. And it was because people could tell she was genuinely interested in what they had to say. So she's authentic, she's respectful, she's engaging. And one guy who seemed very closed in when we first came, after she started, I guess it was Rick who was saying, asking questions and listening. He told us a lot about what he thought. And I find people like telling you what they care about if you're willing.
Mhm.
And to that point, I think there's a worry that you got to show up being an expert, whether it's on the candidates or on how to have the conversations. And that really isn't required. I think to Rick and Miriam's point, the key is really just being a person, and showing up and asking questions and listening, and knowing that you'll have materials with you from the campaign, and you can also always like take down someone's information and say that you'll follow up with additional info at a later time if you don't have all the answers. It can feel intimidating, feel like you got to be able to show up and have a slick spiel, and that really is not what this is about. It's about showing up, willing to listen, and just connect with people.
Yeah, and being a neighbor. I mean, you're a concerned neighbor, and you're not slick, you're not being paid. That's the reality, and that the authenticity that we were talking about.
You know, it actually really makes a huge impact on people if they ask you something and you don't know. When you say, let me check on that and get back to you. And then when you get back to them the next day, they're like, whoa, she really meant that when she said she was going to do that. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and as we say, you will have materials, palm cards and doorknob hangers and things like that. So we'll go equipped to have some facts with you. As far as when canvassing takes place, there are no set times of the day for canvassing. They usually take place when people are more likely to be home. So we're talking about weekends and weekday late afternoons and early evenings. We will talk later about the actual specific times that canvassing weekends are taking place in August, so stay tuned for that. Then there's the question of, well, whose households do you go to? I'm afraid to drive up that driveway and have a hostile conversation with somebody from the other side. Can anyone speak to the kinds of people you're going to be going to?
Well, my impression is that the turfs that we currently have at headquarters are all registered Democrats. We'll be visiting all registered Democrats. So I think the conversations are going to be really comfortable and really good. I'm actually really excited to go out and chat with my neighbors.
I think the point should be made, obviously, that one's safety is a priority. And if there's anxiety or concern or a Doberman pincher on the front lawn, you pass it by. You do not have to feel obligated to put yourself into any discomfort.
There is even a place in minivan to put dog, like dangerous dog, and worse, right? That you can't get in. I remember once, I'm pretty persistent at getting in. There was a big high fence, and there was you had to have a key to get in to get to the place. And even I realized probably not a good idea to jump the fence, but you can indicate. if there's a barrier to going and save someone the next time.
Yeah,
And-
actually, on our little preparatory meeting last night, to organize this thing, it turns out that none of us have ever had a really bad experience with canvassing. It's been, the range has gone from sort of inconsequential to, maybe some people say not interested in sort of a blunt way. That's not the most pleasant thing to hear, but you could, that kind of thing. But I certainly have never had a scary conversation, and nor have I heard others have that.
And you will not be alone.
Yeah.
You will
And-
have a partner.
And we're really targeting low propensity voters, correct? We're looking to get the people out, they may not have voted in the last few elections. Those are the people whose doors we're especially intent on knocking on. So if you're not really up for the job of canvassing, but you're canvassing curious, you might decide to dip your toe in by being a driver. That's really an important task here. The way it works is that you want to get up somebody's driveway, you want to turn around so you can leave, easily if you want to. You need somebody who's comfortable with doing that kind of driving, and then the other person gets out and does the talking. So if you know people or you yourself are interested in that task, we welcome that kind of contribution. Oh, okay. Okay.
Ellen, there's also, you may be about to say this, but there's also the greeter role. There's someone who's at the launch site, and we want to make sure we get people's names and contact information. So you can be the gracious person who welcomes people and make sure we can follow up with them.
Great. All right, is there anything, panel, that we haven't covered that we should have before we launch into questions? Anybody? Okay.
I think we should tell some little anecdotes of our highlighted moments. Well, at least
Okay.
I will. I will say I was assigned in 2012 to the African American community in Richmond, Virginia, to ring doorbells for Obama. And it was tough getting down there because it was, if you remember, a few days after Hurricane Sandy. And I had a big Obama button on, which identified me. It was, I will say, from the narrow bubble in which I live, it was a pretty eye-opening walkthrough in this community that I would not otherwise have been to. But I walked up one driveway. It was a particularly unkempt lawn. And I knocked on the door and no one was there. And I was putting literature in the door when I saw this face. I saw eyes looking out at me. And I stopped, and was a little threatening, I will say. I was by myself, I'm sorry to say. But anyway, the door opened. I pointed to the Obama button and the door opened. And this guy who could have been a linebacker, he was huge. He came out and I said, "Hi, I'm volunteering for Barack Obama." And he paused and he said to me, "Where you from, girl?" My accent. I said, I'm from New York." And he stepped out and he embraced me in a hug. That was the most extraordinary thing. And he said, "I'm so sorry for what has happened to your city. And I send you my love, and I send love to all the neighbors." And I said, "Thank you." And he ended up volunteering to drive people to the polls. And we actually involved him. I mean, I've lost touch with him now, but we did communicate email wise for a brief period afterwards. So, I mean, it was an amazing moment for me. I assume for him, but certainly for me. Just passing it on.
That is a nice story. And I've already told my story of the lady with the tarp. So any other panelists want to share a moment of their long experience with canvassing? Okay, if not, we'll move into questions. Okay, so let's see. Scroll up here. Okay, we have a question. Will you have a video of this event available for publication? We are recording it, yes. Does Indivisible provide info statistics on candidates? I think we've covered that. We will have some materials. We also refer people who want to be, who are really good students and want to be thoroughly armed with information to go to the websites of the candidates where you can have probably as much information there as any voter is going to ask you. But, you know, most people don't get that into the weeds with this stuff. Most of the people whose doors you knock on. Let's see. Here's a question. Is the purpose to gather information, intelligence on the voters, or persuade them to vote for Josh? When you say intelligence, sometimes there is basic information that you want to collect during the canvassing process, and you do find, you know, bad addresses. You do find that somebody's dead, somebody's moved away, and that can all be and other significant information, and you can note that in the minivan. As far as persuading people to vote for Josh, yes, that's why you're out there. That's the focus, and there's plenty of good stuff to say about him. So you know, that's the good news. Okay. And I see that Rick has also responded to that. Rick, can you just go through what you're saying there? You're
You
mute.
muted.
Sure. Yeah, so given the lists that we're working with, most of these people are, you know, registered Dems who don't vote often. I went out Sunday morning and that's the kind of list I had. So it wasn't so much convincing them about Josh, it was convincing them to get out and vote and the importance of voting. So Josh, in that case, was kind of secondary to my main goal of getting them to agree that it was important to get out and vote in the fall. And then to support the Dems was my second line. You know, so, but I lead with, it's really important that you get to the polls this fall. We can help you if you need it. And then secondarily, please vote for our candidates, you know, as Democrats.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. What's a good opener for almost any situation? I usually start with "You look fabulous." But, no, that's I'd like to hear people's if anybody has answers to that.
I often, to the point of all the question asked, talking about, you know, how asking questions is first and foremost. I often try to frame the conversation not as me wanting something from them, but as me offering something. So, you know, if I was canvassing for Josh Riley, I'd say, you know, hi, I'm with Josh Riley's campaign, and I'm just out here checking in and seeing what issues matter to people in the community. And I'm curious if anything's on your mind leading up to this election. Opening the conversation that way, giving someone a chance to air any grievances or you know, share a piece of what's on their mind before, you know, really making it about like, we want to, you know, have your vote. I think generally for me, that's a more effective way to like really invite someone in, as opposed to asking for something.
People may also be interested in knowing how much of a commitment do you have to make? I mean, do you have to do this a lot? What's the minimum? What's the maximum? We don't have any minimums. We take anybody who wants to come. We're happy to see them. You try it out. If you come back and it works for you, you'll come back more than once, I'm sure. But I'm curious if those who are on the call here who are canvassing curious. I'm wondering if anybody wants to let us know what kind of reservations you have, or if you're a first timer or never done this before. Anybody willing to share that information with people?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have canvassed in 2018 and for Delgado as well. And lots of doors nobody answered in Hudson. And we do a lot of postcarding here, and we certainly did that in huge numbers especially during the pandemic. But now steadily every day we do the postcards. And phone banking, the frustration there is again, very few people that you actually speak to. And now most of the dialers we've used, you don't even leave a message. We have tried text banking, and that's, you got to really pay attention and, you know, takes a lot of concentration in a computer environment. So I have canvassed. It's just, it's hard to talk to neighbors. It's hard to talk to people. I'm gregarious, I'm outgoing, but knocking on that door and not knowing what to expect, there's no fear for safety or anything. It's just, you know, I did a lot of speaking at work in small groups up to 20, 30 people, very comfortable with that. But it's just the stranger element, the not knowing. I certainly don't have one story with my limited experience with canvassing. I don't have one story where I made a difference in the way that some of you shared. So, you know, what would really be helpful for me, and maybe it's too babyish, but perhaps not for this, maybe offline or something with somebody else. Maybe some role playing would be good. Just to
Maybe,
watch it, or yeah, I'm sure there's videos out there on YouTube I could watch, but it's really good to hear from people whose faces I recognize and respect and know. And you know Columbia County. It was very different out on Long Island and in Manhattan. This is 90% people don't answer anything.
Maybe we should do a little role play right now. Alex, what do you think?
Thank you.
The spot improv?
If there's the appetite for it, happy to.
Okay. Who wants to be the person behind the door? Oh, I'll vote.
I nominate Miriam.
Okay, Alex, do you want me to be easy, tough, or in between?
You can surprise me. Also worth saying, I haven't been canvassing for Josh this cycle, so I'll keep it very general and high level.
We'll just give it a try and see where it goes. Okay.
Sounds good.
You can be however your true self tells you to be. And you start. You heard a knock on the door.
Oh, yeah, why are you here? I'm kind of busy with my kids, but why are you here?
Totally understand and won't take more than a couple of minutes. My name's Alex. I'm here with Josh Riley's campaign, and we're just out here in the community talking to folks, seeing what issues are top of mind for them leading into the election. Is there anything that's really been on your mind?
Yeah, I feel like voting doesn't make a difference. I feel like prices are high. I feel like people promise stuff. They say I'm going to get broadband access and I haven't. And I just wonder if it makes a difference. Although I do respect you for taking the time and coming to see me. I appreciate that. Tommy, could you go play over there for a minute, please? Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. No, I totally understand. And I feel frustrated about how overwhelming the system feels sometimes. And that's why I'm out here talking to folks, because just by being here and having this conversation with you and maybe a few of your neighbors, more people can have a tether to this system that seems so big and so far away from us and feels like, we don't have a say in how things go. Races in this district recently have been decided by just a few thousand votes. That is not that many people. And while it may feel like just you as one person can't make that difference, if you go and talk to a couple of your neighbors and a couple of your neighbors talk to their neighbors, suddenly that's a real meaningful difference in terms of changing the outcome of this election. But I feel that frustration too. And and again, that's why I'm here.
Okay, well, I appreciate your coming. I would like to have a candidate who's going to do something about broadband. Does your candidate say anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I currently right now, I don't have the specifics on his broadband policy, but I would love if you'd be interested to take down whether your number or your email, and I can send you some more information specifically on his policies.
One of my neighbors did tell me that Josh Riley was good on jobs, that where he grew up, it was like a working class neighborhood and his family and friends were losing jobs and he cares about that. So that's my kind of person. He's like that. I got to go because my kid is pulling up my skirt, but I
Absolutely.
will find out more about him, and I appreciate your stopping by. And I'm going to check his website to see if he says something about broadband. Thank you
Perfect. And
for coming
I'll
by.
give you this piece of information too. Thank you
Okay,
so much,
thanks.
Miriam. Have a
Great
good
job,
one.
guys. Round of applause. There you go. Karen, was that helpful at all? Pretty good. Yeah, you guys did a really interesting job there.
So Karen, I just want to tell Karen two things. So one thing, my husband was an organizer. He had to go out into all these, what I thought were really difficult, challenging situations. And he told me that the first time he had to do what they're called one-on-one meetings, you go and you try to find out what someone really cares about. He said he was petrified. And I was shocked. I said, Jim, you know, you're considered one of the best people doing these things. He said, well, when I first was told to do it, I was scared. Okay, so my point is just that when you first try something, it can be pretty daunting. He was super skilled at it when I knew him. And just one other thing, you know, when we go out and we know expectations are a lot of people are not going to be home. You can't, you know, I don't expect I'm going to have 20 great conversations. So my expectations are if I have a couple of opportunities to talk to people and give people good information, that's a win. And some days, like on Saturday, you just hit, you know, the prize where two people who wanted to volunteer, several people who said they were going to vote all Democratic, some who said, I don't know enough about the candidates, but I'll find out. Sometimes you have a great day. But I think it's important to set expectations and realize I'm going out for a couple of hours and it's important and I'm going to just do my best in that amount of time.
And the other piece of this is that you're doing something that, you know, really feels, even if you don't get a lot of houses, or even if you got only one house, you'll feel like you got out and you did it, you know, and you'll feel you contributed something at a really perilous time in our nation's history. And that's significant. After the fact, you won't be regretting that you didn't do anything. So
and we have lit to leave. And I think people come back and they say, oh, someone actually came to my door and left me lit. That's a good thing. So I like having the lit to leave. It makes me feel more productive when someone's not home.
And something also we at Not for Democracy, we call it political dusting, which is, you know, if a house is inaccessible or someone's moved, that information is really valuable to the campaign. Those are people that they don't have to then spend time over the rest of the cycle trying to reach. You're bettering their data, you're narrowing their lists and making the work more efficient for everyone who comes after you too. So those, don't sleep on those, you know, those folks who have moved or their houses are inaccessible. That's helpful. All of it's helpful.
Now, Karen brought up phone banking, and we have with us Victoria, who's a staffer with the Riley campaign, and she said that she would like to spend a couple of minutes talking about phone banking as well. Victoria, are you there?
I'm not sure she is, but Elliot is still there, though muted.
Oh, hey, go ahead. Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to get the video work. Here we go. Hello.
Elliot,
Yeah.
introduce yourself to the group here.
Yeah, so my name is Elliot Schneier, and I'm the Deputy Organizing Director for the New York Democrats in the Upper Hudson Valley. So working for Josh Riley and Michelle Hinchy and so forth in Columbia Green, Rensselaer, Sullivan, and Ulster. Most of those not too relevant to you, but yeah, I think this is a great, like, not even primer, but training and background on what makes people good at canvassing. And, you know, we will give you guys a script if you come to knock on doors with us. But honestly, like, at the end of the day, you guys have to start these conversations and seem like a human person that can make connections like Alex was talking about. And, you know, I think this is a good, if you've listened to this, you're in good shape to do just that. So I will let you know that this weekend in Chatham, you can practice all of what you've heard on this great call at the Chatham office at 2 Park Row. And you can let us know you're coming by signing up on the link I've just put in the chat. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I can add much that hasn't already been said, to be honest, besides that, but we would love to see all you there. And I hope that if you guys are available, you'll definitely sign up for a shift this weekend.
Can you just run through, Elliot, what the dates are that?
I sure can. So the link that's in the chat there is for the August 3rd and 4th. We have Canvas launches trainings at 10 a.m., 12 p.m., and 2 p.m. So that's when we'll be, giving the whole training and spiel and all that kind of stuff. So you'll get list of voters. We'll make sure you set up on the minivan app, get you the literature, answer any questions you have, and then you'll be there for when you come back and everything. That'll be in the Chatham area. Also on that link, you'll see some sign up opportunities for when we'll be back in the area on August 31st and September 1st. And on top of that, I'm going to put another link in here, which is also for Chatham, rather confusingly, on the 10th and 11th. Oh, sorry, Victoria's already put it there. And it's a different link because it's with Swing Blue Alliance, who are a group out of Massachusetts. And so that has a slightly different sign up, but August 10th, August 11th at 10 and 12. So you can sort of peruse those links. Alan, perhaps I could send you those links to follow up with the attendance list on the call, so you don't have to worry about copy and paste from the chat necessarily. And yeah, beyond that, you can get in touch with me at elliot@newyorkdems.org. If for anything regarding the campaign in the area, and also you can get in touch with Victoria at newyorkdems.org if you want to canvass outside of our office hours.
All right.
I see a question on phone banking in the chat, and we do have phone banking. We have phone banking on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 is when we have our regularly scheduled phone banks. I will find the link for that shortly. But so those are when we have like the trainings and there's other people on the line and all that kind of stuff. If you want to make some calls outside of those, slots, obviously within sociable hours, you can do that by contacting Victoria. She can give you a list of people to call as well.
Thank you, Elliot. Are there any other questions that we can answer for anybody? If not, we're going to wish everybody a good night. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you in the office at 2 Park Row. Thanks, panelists, for being here. Thank you, everybody.